once again the directors of the God We Trust, Kubicek and Derek Anderson.
Please join us in welcoming Eleanor Squillari. That's how we felt when we met her too. So
Okay, I'd like to start off by asking you to, what drew you to this story, first of all, and how did the project get off the ground for you?
well, it was just as I was saying. Sorry, it was really Eleanor. I think Victor and I were both, like everybody, sort of blown away by the headlines and were shocked by the story. We actually didn't go into this with the intention of making a film about Bernie Madoff, and we had the good fortune of meeting Eleanor just shortly after his arrest through a friend and a journalist, Mark Seal. And he said, "Oh, if you're interested in this crime, you should meet Eleanor Squillari." As soon as, oh sorry, is that better? It sounds better. And as soon as we met her, we knew that if she would allow us, it was a movie we had to make, and thankfully she agreed.
And Eleanor, were you reluctant to hand your story over to these guys?
Oh, not at all. I first had written a story in Vanity Fair with Mark Seal, and I think a lot of good had come out of that. People were starting to understand that there was more going on. So when I met Victor and Derek, we kind of just clicked and we wanted the same end result. We were looking to figure out how this could have happened and all about the regulatory issues. And they were on board with what I wanted, and it worked. And I want to thank you for your applause. It was very heartwarming.
Okay, if anyone has a question, go ahead, sir. Yes.
For Eleanor, I'm curious how you've been able to support yourself and what your future job prospects might be. Do you think participation in the investigation and the documentary will afford you the second chance we all think you deserve?
That question was, what are your future job prospects, and do you think that your participation in the investigation and the documentary will give you a great second chance?
Well, what happened after his arrest, we couldn't find work, a lot of the employees, and I had the time to work on the documentary. I sold my house and I lived off of the proceeds. And as far as working, I recently got married and I retired and moved to Florida.
Why a society like the United States, which is so litigious, has enacted class action suits against the Securities and Exchange Commission? And they had the opportunity to investigate. They did investigate. They missed everything. I think there was nieces and nephews that were on the investigative committee as well, or in-laws that were on that investigative committee. Yet there has been no class action suits. Why?
Why do you think there haven't been any class action lawsuits?
The SEC is a government agency, and I don't believe that they can be sued, but you're absolutely right. From the time in the 90s that we know of, they never really made public all of the auditing they did, all of the infractions that were going on, right up until the end. The SEC, for some reason, just looked the other way.
But they came through your office, you saw them as well. What did they say when they were leaving them? They were definitely in awe of Bernie Madoff.
Oh, they were. They used to have the interns come into our office every year, and we were the model firm.
Yeah, they say America is like government for the people, by the people, but one of the things that they actually don't highlight in that is that it's almost impossible to sue the U.S. government, and the Justice Department didn't really take any action.
You have to remember the IRS collected taxes on these falsified 1099s forever, so it's really not in the government's best interest to open that Pandora's box, as you can imagine.
We're going to actually... sorry, go ahead.
And then they refiled, and then I'll shut up.
Has anyone refiled?
The tax returns.
Basically, it's a real labyrinth to be able to refile. The U.S. government has allowed people to go back 3 years, and those people could file if they had the means. It's a very complicated process to refile your taxes in this case. But we know that since the 60s, they've actually been collecting income on phantom income, or taxes on phantom income, and the U.S. government won't let taxpayers collect anything, further back than 3 years prior to his arrest.
Okay, on the aisle, and then...
So, from what I understand, the whole Madoff empire was trading. Is that correct? Did they have any other revenue streams?
You said the whole empire was from
Well,
trade?
you have.
Well, let me finish.
Uh-huh.
So if the whole thing was from trading, and his two sons were the kind of head of the trading department, because they make X amount of dollars a year, how could they not know if the company makes Y and they're making X and they're legitimate trading, how could they not be aware that there's money kind of...
Well,
How could the company have not been aware that there was all of this other money?
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that the sons were...
Yes, so this gentleman is saying...
fair enough. I mean, I think there's a majority of the employees at Bernie Madoff's trading facility on the 18th and 19th floor didn't really know a hell of a lot about what was going on the 17th floor at all. And I mean...
Well, forget about the 17th floor. So the company makes
But no,
$100 million a year or whatever. So the company makes this about a year.
right.
If you're a trader, you know, you're not stupid, I would think. So they're making $50 million a year or whatever it was. So how can those numbers don't jive? So
Well,
Yeah, just let... Yeah.
The legitimate business actually was a very profitable business.
Right.
In fact, when the trustee took over, they actually sold the legitimate trading business to another firm, for a significant amount of money. So it wasn't an enormously profitable venture. So looking at the numbers, it would have been very easy for the boys to say, am I paid disproportionately? Yes, on his, weird sums. But there was certainly enough profit in the legitimate trading business to pay them a ton of money.
No, I understand that, but at the same time...
Yeah, sorry, there's a very short time for a Q&A, and there's lots of questions. Appreciate it. Oh, yes, sir, go ahead.
After the story in Barron's nothing seemed to happen. And that's my first question. And the other question is, the Wall Street Journal also had the story. They were going to break it, and they killed it. This was about a month before the whole scandal got uncovered. I'm just wondering if you know why that happened.
Do you know why the Wall Street Journal killed the story when they had it?
We actually don't know why the Wall Street Journal didn't, why they took the story. We do know, obviously, we dealt with Erin Hartland very, intensely, that she was shocked that no one actually said anything when her article came out. And obviously it was something that was whispered in Wall Street forever, but I think it's a little bit of a good old boys club. You don't actually turn somebody else in. Nothing. She did fall short in that if she is a journalist, and nothing to her discredit. But, she called into question his returns, but she also didn't check the DTC to see if there were really, actually...
Yeah, there were simple steps she could have also taken at that time, and I guess she didn't, because if she had, she would have had more ammunition.
And she would have put a nail in the coffin,
Yeah,
basically.
that's true.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, question for Eleanor. Do you ever feel worried for your own safety, considering all the deaths happening, suicide, and things happening along the way?
Eleanor, did you ever feel concerned for your safety?
Actually, no, I didn't. I was frightened in the beginning because I didn't understand what was going on. But after I realized it was so horrible that it didn't occur to me to be afraid. I was pretty mad.
I can add to that, though. There were a couple times where, through us and through other people indirectly, in the making of this film and also in response to Eleanor's Vanity Fair article, there was sort of some veiled threats that came her way, but, she never flinched.
Yes.
It appears in the documentary that Eleanor, you were able to stay going to the office looking for records for quite a long time. Is that a dramatization or?
Oh no, I was able to...
Sorry, I just need to repeat that so everyone in the balcony can hear. It seemed in the film that you were able to continue to go to the office for a very long time. Was that a dramatization, or did you really have that access?
No, it was real. I worked with the FBI until the end of March of 2009. And then, I've been keeping in touch with them, as a matter of fact. One of them retired now, and I had lunch with him the other day.
Are there any other questions in the balcony? If you have one, can you just make some noise? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Americans read from MSNBC, and every week or every day, they have a ton of somebody doing money for you, the whole industry. So that bill passed that was supposed to...
No.
Did the bill pass that was supposed to make that
In fact,
impossible time
that's
Ponzi
what we're
schemes?
hoping is one of the greater takeaways of this film is hopefully it's a call to action for people to kind of pay attention to the details around that bill. It has no support in Congress. It's going completely unseen and unheard, and it's unfortunate because it's really in the interest of every American investor.
I was just, yeah, you have a thing called the Canadian Investment Protection Fund, which is actually, it serves exactly the same function as Civic. Here in Canada, you get $1 million protection insurance per account in the case of insolvency or fraud. Though, you know, American investors thought they were covered until a fraud of this magnitude, and then the trustee was able to go back and make the laws change, and in fact they weren't. In 2005, CIPC, the US organization, and the Canadian Investment Protection Fund signed a pact that they would mirror their policies and actually work together in a joint effort, because there are so many investment firms that do business in both the US and Canada. So at the moment, Canadians are protected, but as were Americans prior to this crime. So hopefully, you don't see a crime of that magnitude here in Canada, but if you do, I think it's something to be vigilant about. And again, because US policy, particularly as it relates to those two agencies, is so dictated by the US policy, it's in everybody's best interest that America actually clean up their act and really hold Wall Street accountable and truly insure investors. And it makes it much more difficult for related agencies like the Canadian Investment Protection Corporation to follow the same bad path that Civic did.
Okay, we can take 2 more questions. Yes, sir. Greg.
Were you not able to further develop the money laundering aspect of your piece, and if not, why not?
Were you not able to further develop the money laundering aspect of the piece, and if not, why not?
Well, the great thing about somebody who's good at money laundering is that the trail goes cold. We actually know that he was laundering money. We also didn't want to put anything in the film where we didn't have empirical evidence. So we know that he, Bernie allocated to that. It was buried in the sort of crimes he actually admitted that he had actually committed. There are all the hallmarks of money laundering. At the end of the day, we could never trace it back to who he was laundering money for. In fact, you know, Laurent Matheson-Gerst, who Eleanor really started Eleanor's journey to looking into money laundering, is like a phantom. He was actually one of the biggest bankers in Switzerland. He went to La Rosey, which is one of the most, you know, elite private schools in the world, and a picture of him doesn't exist. So, Eleanor and all of us, we did everything we could to find out more.
It's tricky. Sonia Cohn is also another thread one could follow to try to peel back the layers on that. But you know, Picard tried to prosecute her, and it didn't stick in the American courts. So, I mean, if they can't, you know, bring her to a trial, it's kind of tricky.
And we do know that Sonia Cohn has moved the bulk of her assets to Israel, where they don't have an extradition policy with the U.S. So it is unlikely that there'll ever be criminal charges against her.
Okay, we can do one final question. Yes, ma'am. That comment was that you know, there's a lot of very complicated financial details in there. Do you guys have a financial background, or did you have advisors helping you with the?
I have a financial background, but we were lucky enough to sit down with a lot of really informed, smart people, and we learned a lot on the job. And we really did.
Okay, I want to thank you guys so much for coming.